My name is Sarah. I was 22 when my parents arranged my marriage to a man I barely knew. His name was Fahad, quiet, decent, and educated. Everyone said I was lucky, but inside, I didn't feel lucky at all. It wasn't that Fahad was a bad person. It was just that I didn't love him. I didn't even know him. My heart was still holding on to someone else, a dream that never came true. He was my friend from college, someone I thought I would spend my life with. But fate had other plans. My parents said, "Love will come later, Sarah. Respect is enough for now." So I agreed. I smiled in front of everyone, pretending to be happy, while my heart cried silently inside. The wedding day passed like a blur. Music, lights, and congratulations. Everyone was busy celebrating, but I felt empty. When I entered Fahad's house for the first time, I felt like a guest, not a bride. That night, when I entered our room, I felt cold fear running through me. My hands trembled as I adjusted my dupatta. Fahad walked in slowly. He looked calm but serious. He greeted me politely. "Assalamu alaikum, Sarah." I whispered, "Wa alaikum assalam." My voice was almost lost in the air. He sat on the chair, not too close, not too far. For a few minutes, silence filled the room. I kept my eyes down, thinking, he must be wondering why I look so nervous. Then he spoke softly. "You don't have to be afraid. I know this marriage was arranged quickly. You can take your time." His words surprised me. I looked up for a second and saw kindness in his eyes, but I quickly looked away. I didn't want to feel anything. I didn't want to believe that this stranger could ever matter to me. He continued, "I believe love can't be forced." "I'll wait until you feel comfortable," those words stayed in my mind. I didn't reply, but something inside me softened. Maybe he wasn't as cold as I thought. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how my life had changed in just one day. A week ago, I was dreaming of another man, another life. Now, I was in a new home, with a new husband, starting a story I never wanted to begin. The next morning, I woke up early to help in the kitchen. His mother was kind and gentle. She said, "Fahad doesn't talk much, but he's a good-hearted boy. You'll be happy with him." I just smiled politely. Happiness felt like a faraway thing to me. Days passed slowly. Fahad went to work every morning and came back quietly in the evening. He always asked, "How was your day?" And I always answered shortly, "Fine." We didn't argue, but we didn't really connect either. It was a polite silence between us, comfortable for him, but heavy for me. Sometimes I caught him looking at me, not with desire, but with concern, as if he wanted to understand my silence. One evening, he asked gently, "Are you still unhappy with this marriage?" I was shocked. "No, it's not that," I said quickly, though it was partly true. He smiled faintly and said, "It's okay to be honest. I know you didn't choose this marriage. I just hope one day you'll see me differently." His words touched me, but I didn't know what to say. I simply nodded. That night, I sat by the window, looking at the moon. I whispered to myself, maybe he deserves a chance. But the next day, something changed. Fahad came home late, later than usual. He looked tired and didn't eat much. I asked, politely, "Is everything okay?" He smiled weakly. "Just work pressure." Don't worry, I wanted to ask more, but I stopped myself. Maybe it wasn't my place. We weren't close enough for that. A few days later, I saw him sitting alone in the living room, looking through an old album. I stood at the door quietly. There were photos of his parents, some childhood memories, and one picture of a young girl. He quickly closed the album when he saw me. Something in his eyes looked sad. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I kept wondering, who was that girl? A friend? Someone he loved? For the first time, I felt jealous. It was strange because I had no right to feel that way. But I did. The next morning, I tried to act normal. When he left for work, I looked around the room and saw that same photo lying under a book on the table. I picked it up slowly. The girl was smiling brightly. She looked happy and free. I sighed and whispered, maybe he also had a past, just like me. For the first time, I felt something for him. Not love, but understanding. Maybe both of us were living a story we didn't choose. That evening, when he came home, I greeted him first for the first time. He looked surprised, but happy. I said softly, "You must be tired. I made tea for you." He smiled. "Thank you, Sarah." That moment felt small, but for me, it was the beginning of something new. A soft, silent bond that didn't need words yet. I still didn't love him, but that day, I respected him. Days turned into weeks. Something was slowly changing between us. Something soft, unspoken, but real. I didn't realize when our small talk started feeling natural, or when his smile began to bring peace to my heart. One evening, as we sat for dinner, I noticed a bandage on his hand. "What happened?" I asked quickly. "Oh, it's nothing serious," he said. "Just a small cut at work." Without thinking, I said, "Let me see." I gently took his hand. The wound wasn't deep, but it looked painful. I cleaned it quietly, without saying much. He watched me carefully, as if every small gesture mattered. After a moment, he said softly, "You care, even if you don't say it." I felt my cheeks warm. I quickly pulled my hand back. "Anyone would do the same," I said. He smiled gently. "Not everyone would." That night, I lay awake thinking about his words. It was true, I was beginning to care. Somewhere between silence and small smiles, something had begun to grow. The next morning, his mother said, "Sarah, you're bringing light into this house. Fahad laughs more these days." Her words made me smile unconsciously. I didn't even know he noticed my presence that much. But life is never simple. One evening, I found that same photo again. The girl with the bright smile. I couldn't resist asking. "Who is she?" I asked gently, trying not to sound jealous. He looked surprised but calm. "She was someone I wanted to marry once," he said honestly. My heart sank a little, but I stayed quiet. He continued. "Her family didn't agree. It was painful, but I accepted it. That's why I understand you, Sarah. I know what it feels like to marry without love." I looked at him silently, my heart full of mixed feelings, sadness, sympathy, and respect. He smiled faintly and said, "But you've changed me. You've made me believe love can grow again, even after pain." That was the moment I couldn't hold back my tears. He gently wiped them away and said, "Don't cry, Sarah. We're both learning how to heal." I nodded, and for the first time, I looked at him not as a stranger, but as someone who had also walked through heartbreak, just like me. Days passed, and our bond deepened. We began to share little joys, morning tea, evening walks, and quiet talks before sleep. He never forced love, never demanded affection, but his patience spoke louder than words. One rainy evening, as thunder rolled outside, we sat near the window, watching the rain. I whispered, "You know, I used to think this marriage was a mistake." He looked at me calmly. "And now?" I smiled softly. "Now I think it was fate." He laughed gently. Then maybe fate wasn't that cruel after all. We both laughed, but my eyes filled with tears again, happy ones this time. That night, as I looked at him, I realized something beautiful. Love doesn't always arrive like a storm. Sometimes it grows quietly, like rain soaking the earth, slowly, deeply, and gently. Months passed, and our relationship became stronger. One day, my mother visited. She looked at me and said, "You look happy, Sarah." I smiled and replied, "I am, Ami." "You were right. Love can grow later." That evening, Fahad and I sat together, talking about our future, about dreams, family, and life. I told him, "You've taught me something important." He asked, "What's that?" I said softly, "That real love isn't about excitement or perfection. It's about peace, the kind that makes you feel safe even in silence." He smiled and said, "And you've taught me that love doesn't always start before marriage. Sometimes it's built after. Slowly, but truly." I looked into his eyes, and for the first time, I felt love. Not forced, not imagined, but real. The kind that grows from respect, kindness, and shared pain. Years later, when I looked back, I realized that my marriage without love was actually the story of how love was born, in a place where it was never expected. Moral of the story. True love doesn't always begin before marriage. Sometimes it begins with respect, patience, and understanding. When two people decide to care, even without love, love naturally finds its way.